Do you feel that I got to ask too about the whole recent controversy? Do you feel you were taken out of context because you seem pretty pissed about the way that whole thing was taken?
Oh, I was absolutely taken out of by the the Patrick Lynch situation. Yeah, no, I was completely taken out of context. I mean, I have a absolute. I don't think anyone's arguing that I don't have a right, but you can actually condemn police brutality and not condemn the entire institution of the police force ad hoc. All right, to say that there are some cops that are abusing power and there's institutional racism going on in law enforcement doesn't negate everything good that good policemen do and that the law enforcement does in general. But there is a problem that needs to be dealt with because people are dying and it's just disgusting and it needs to be taken care of. And so the way they attacked me and misrepresented what I said, that I'm a cop hater and that I'm saying that all cops are murderers. I mean, that's just not what I said. And everyone knows that, who looked what I had to say. But then I clarified it a little bit more. And you guys were cool. I listened to the show when you guys talked about it and everything. I'm like, that's not what he said.
Did they, by the way, did they back off? Because you're a guy who never seems to back off when someone tells you not to say something. Did they back off a little bit when you really did clarify?
They didn't go out of their way to make a statement saying that we're backing off. All right, but they have kind of lost a head of steam about going forward. I mean, I don't know if officially the boycott is still in effect. I think probably if you asked Patrick Lynch, he would probably say it was. I think if you asked Bill Bratton, I think he would probably say no comment, to say the truth. We'll see what the deal is. I'm not trying to provoke those dudes per se. Sure. But I think what happened was the guy Jim Pasco, who's the head of the league that represents all the cops, or the co-chair of that league. He went out and he ended up, I think, helping me out and making them look really, really bad. And I think that ended up taking the wind out of the sails a little bit of what their situation was, because he basically threatened me.
Right.
In public, like, we got a surprise for Tarantino. And sometime between here and then, when his movie opens, we're going to show this guy something. And then, like, even he started realizing how bad he was sounding. He sounded like a bad guy's in an 80s action movie. He goes, we're not saying we're going to hurt him, but he's going to get the picture, if you know what I mean. All right. And, like, people were literally writing, like, did the cops just threaten to kill Quentin Tarantino, or am I crazy?
Yeah.
And the thing that was, it was also the way that the police organizations reacted to my very legitimate protest and my very legitimate complaint was disingenuous. I mean, I'm sure what they felt was that I was just some out-of-touch rich fuck celebrity, all right, that goes out there and just started talking about shit he didn't know what he was talking about. I'm sure that's what they came from. But what they did instead is demonize me, claim that I said something I didn't, and then, like, hit me like a ton of bricks. One, because I think they figured, okay, we're going to shut this guy up, toot sweet. And two, we're going to teach anybody else who's going to open their big mouth. Hey, you do this. This is what you get. We're going to do to you what we did to Tarantino. But I think they also figured, me being a rich scumbag, all right, that if they actually tried to affect my bottom line, that naturally I would walk backwards and start doing the apologizing and everything. And I just didn't do that.
And you believe overwhelmingly that the cops do the right thing?
Well, I do.
Because that's my headline with this whole thing when we discuss it. I just want, if we're discussing this topic, I just want that to be discussed on TV as well. That, look, the majority absolutely do it.
I do not think it's a bad apple situation. I don't buy that argument.
Yeah, okay.
I don't buy that argument. But I will say this. Look, I'm a rich guy, and I live in the Hollywood Hills in California.
Nice. I'd love to come by.
Nice. He invited us once, but he never gave the address or gave us a phone number. Let the record show. But it was nice anyway.
Yeah. I meant it when I said it. All right?
Caught up in the moment. I understand.
But the thing is, look, I live in the Hollywood Hills. When I see a cop driving around my neighborhood, I have no doubt that they are there for my best interest, for both me and my safety and protecting me and my property. And I'm sure if you go to Steen's Landing out here and knock on doors and ask them, they'll say the same thing. And I'm sure if you go to Pasadena or Glendale and knock on doors, they'll say the same thing. If you go to Inglewood, California and start knocking on doors, and they're not going to say the same thing. Because they don't feel that way. Because ever since the war on drugs happened about 30 years ago, as opposed to protecting the community per se, they've been busting every son and daughter and husband and father for piddling little drug offenses. And that is the truth. And I do believe that there is institutional racism going on, that black males and brown males are criminalized in their eyes. There is a suspicion of criminality going on. And you bust some kid for a joint that he has in his pocket, which, by the way, they don't do to the same age kids in Pasadena and Glendale and in the white areas, because they can get in trouble. And they bust them, and now all of a sudden they have they're in the system now.
Let me ask you too, because this is I know enough cops and I know enough black guys who have never met, and they all tell me the same thing. Black guys, meaning black guys, will all say the cops do treat them a lot differently, and the cops all say, look, I mean, black people make my job harder. Like, they hate me, and it's like, what do they do to fix that?
Well, oddly enough, that whole incident that happened in Chicago, that was been publicized for the last 3 weeks. I think that puts a lie to the bad apples argument, because okay, so the cop that shot that kid, is he the bad apple? Okay, well, I think we'd all agree, yeah, he's the bad apple. But what about the 8 other cops that were standing around as it all happened, and who didn't say anything for an entire year? And how about the union head who told a statement that now he's actually walking backwards? Well, I didn't know. It was just hearsay. That's what they told me. But in the statement given to local television at the time, is the victim of this murder was a criminal, and that he lunged at them, and that was just a falsehood. And 8 different cops were standing there and saw it, and then so where does this bad apple business stop? Now, the interesting thing about all that, I actually thought Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, his press conference was one of the most interesting things I've saw in the news in a long time. He was under fire, and he's known as a liberal. He's Obama's guy, and I ultimately do believe he's coming from a good place. But again, you have a situation where you got the Patrick Lynches of the world. Bill de Blasio stands up for people's rights against abusive law enforcement. And now they attack the mayor in this big way. And that's the shot heard around America. Mayors better keep their damn mouth shut. They better support their boys or else. And that's the situation he's stuck in. And now he's facing almost like a firing squad during this police conference. But what came out of that is he proposed in Chicago some reforms to law enforcement that, if they actually take place, those would be genuinely significant. They would be really, really meaningful. And if they were, if that were to happen, and they were adopted in other places, I mean, that would actually be a meaningful step forward.
And what do you think the difference is, too, between, because it's such a weird job to carry a gun and have the right to arrest people, between a guy who really fucks up on the job and kills somebody and a guy who is actually a murderer. Like the guy running away in, was it North Carolina?
Yeah.
That to me is a very fair calling a guy a murderer.
And not only that, I mean, that was a situation where not only did he murder that guy, it was caught on tape, and he would have gotten away with the murder if it hadn't been filmed. His word would have been accepted. What
do you think the line is between the murderer and the guy who really is a decent cop who just fucks up and handles something terribly?
Look, the cops do have a hard job, and there is no, they go into dangerous situations. They don't know what the situation is, and cops have been killed stopping people for innocuous crimes. That has happened. We all know that, and that is, at the same time, that is their job. And I don't say that flippantly, but that is their job. But at the same time, I still feel that, like the Eric Garner case. Well, to me that was murder. The cop who strangled him was a murderer, and the other cops that helped, who assisted in that takedown, are accessories to that murder. Now, no, that is part of the things that the police force have pushed back against. Is like, okay, these guys have been indicted for murder, so okay, we're okay with that. But then these other guys have been let off by some sort of cop tribunal, and so now we have umbrage of you calling them murder. The thing that I actually think is interesting is it would be interesting to have somebody from the police academy sitting here, and we watch the Eric Garner video, and I say what I saw, and you say what you saw, and then they say what they saw, because I don't see, you know, I would like to see what it is that they're seeing that's different from what I'm seeing, because I think most citizens watch that, and that is just what it is. And we're talking about New York, all right? If you know, if a guy was standing out there in front of a store in Woodstock, New York, I don't think they would have reacted the way that they did. And even the whole concept of like, well, he was selling loosies, that's not even for sure. He was known for selling loose cigarettes. But the witnesses at the scene say that was not what happened. That he was actually had broken up a fight, but he was just known for doing those kind of things. And he had just been harassed a bunch. I mean, I see a man who has been harassed time and time again, and he said, enough's enough. And I don't see where you basically have to completely acquiesce your manhood in a situation when you're confronted by civil servants.